Se in strada hai rispetto per gli altri, vinci tu, vincono tutti. Rispettiamoci. ACI, partner istituzionale del Giro d'Italia. Se in strada hai rispetto per gli altri, vinci tu, vincono tutti. Rispettiamoci. ACI, partner istituzionale del Giro d'Italia.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second talk organized by the Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà. This evening we're going to talk about mobility. Good evening. So now we are on stage, but also streaming online on the website of the Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà and the meeting, of course. So thank you for being with us, both online and here. The title is Moving Well Together, Moving Well to Live Together. And so we're talking about a primary need, the right to move, the right to go around. This is something that has to do with the freedom of relationships themselves, for people, but also for structures like infrastructures that really have an impact. And we know that prices in the logistics sector are rocketing. So choosing how to move people is a strategic choice for this country, right, Irene? Yes, for sure. This is the main topic of this evening. We're going to talk about it with some of the protagonists of mobility now and for the future. With us, there's Alessandro Perego, Professor of Logistics Management and Director of the Department of Management Engineering of the Polytechnic University of Milan. And Alessandro, so good evening to Alessandro Perego, and with him there is Pietro Darpa, Vice President of Supply Chain, Procter&Gamble. Good evening. Good evening to you. So there are also another two guests that are connected with us online. First, Alessandro Morelli, Vice Minister for Infrastructure and Mobility. Good evening. Good evening to all of you, and thank you for being with us. And then Enrico Pagliari, the Technical Area Coordinator of ACI or ACI. Good evening. Good evening to you. So thanks to all our guests. Let's start immediately, and let's take a sort of snapshot of today's mobility. We are going to show you some figures that have been processed by the Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà in its research. So let's look at them together, and let's look at how we move, how we go around. The figures that you're going to see refer to 2019. So we traveled 1,000 billion kilometers as Italians, and most of it was traveled by car, 76%, 11% with public means of transport, 5.7% with trains. And as for the National Resiliency and Recovery Plan, well, this plan includes 60 billion funds for railways and public transport. So let me start with Vice Minister Morelli. Can we forget the use of car, considering these figures and the perspectives of the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience? Well, let's tell the truth. Saying that we can forget our cars might seem weird, might sound strange, but we need to think of our future, because when we talk about infrastructures, you know, we also need to talk about plans and long-term plans that take even 10 years' time. And so we need to lay the basis for the future of Italy to be characterized by effective railway services and connections. They need to be effective because our citizens need these kinds of responses. The figures that we have just seen are important, and we have seen mobility change a lot in the past years, thank you high-speed trains in particular. If you think, for example, of the journey between Milan and Rome, you can either take the plane in Linate or a high-speed train, and these has really changed the way we move. In different contexts, it's difficult to find an alternative to cars. Wouldn't it be more, let's say, realistic to try to increase the effectiveness of this kind of mobility? As for the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, the PNRR, the funds should be used to strengthen a system that already connects the country in quite an important way. The Italian government also decided to invest part of these funds in national roads. And so let me give you just one example. One of the many cases. For example, the Statale 106 Ionica, it is a road that is sadly famous for a lot of accidents and deaths, but a lot of funds will be destined to renovating, to, let's say, refurbishing that part of the road and for making it safer. Thank you very much. Now, let's move to Enrico Pagliari, Technical Area Coordinator of ACI. Do you feel like betrayed, considering that a lot of funds went to the railway sector? Well, actually, we expected maybe something more, in particular for multi-mode transports. Because, you know, very often there are people who are forced to take the car, but if they had alternatives, maybe they would decide to go for other means of transport. So using several means of transport, cars, public transport, railway, and so on and so forth would be maybe the best option. As for the investments, maybe we expected something more for the maintenance of roads. We talk very often about sustainable mobility, and we think that mobility can be sustainable if it is safe. And so if maintenance is performed on the roads, well, roads become safer as well. If you think of road signs, for example, there can be, there needs to be road signs helping you traveling, for example, during the night. So we expected something more in terms of road maintenance. And something more for fostering intermodality. So, funds for railway, but how will these funds be used? Let's have a look at this video. So, 10 years have gone by in the Apennines to make the connections between Milan and Genova faster. This is the Variante del Terzo Valico. Works have been achieved at 50% and should be over in 2024, thanks to the PNRR funds. Considering that sustainable mobility represents an important share of the funds. Transport, both of people and goods, will be improved by the plan with 61.3 billion euros, out of which 42 will be used to make the infrastructure system in Italy more modern, digital, and sustainable. So there will be works for road transport, but the main focus will be on the south of Italy, where connections will be increased. Some works have already been started. For example, in Genoa or Verona, Vicenza, Padova, Napoli, Bari, and Palermo, Catania. These are the main areas. There is a commission within the Ministry of Infrastructure that has approved the guidelines for a shortened procedures of the PNRR. And here there are some open debates on these railway lines, on these main areas. The 2022-2031 industrial plan will include 190 billion to enhance the infrastructure of the countries, and 60% of the plan will be destined to the south of Italy, with plus 20% for high-speed trains and for goods transport on railway. Morelli, is it difficult to have both high-speed trains and regional transport? Well, no, the two things should be in line. We are currently investing on the main arteries. There are some local companies that are really effective and that can ensure well-articulated service all over the regions. There are for sure some difficulties on some lines. And I would like to thank you for the very interesting video that I have just shown. And I would like to underline that the Terzo Valico is for sure very important to speed up the traffic between Milan and Genoa, because it would reduce the connection by at least 1 hour. But the Terzo Valico will also allow to the Genoa harbor, the Genoa port, to be, let's say, at the forefront of European harbors in Northern Europe. So a lot of ships that now need to circumnavigate Europe and move, let's say, cross Gibraltar, well, they will be able to get to Genoa, and this will also support economically our local areas. We will talk about this very soon. Up to now, we have talked about people, but we also want to look at goods and how goods are moved around Italy. And well, at the end of the video, we heard that one of the main goals is to double the transport of goods on railway. Now, let me show you a video of Ruggiarone of Asso Logistica, a part of Confindustria dealing with mobility. And he's going to talk about the choice that has been made in line with the PNRR. It is a win-win. It is, well, a bet that we think will be winning because, you know, in Italy, we transport few goods on a railway. And the amount is too low, considering the advantages, the pros that could stem from that. This is a short, medium-term perspective, but considering that most of the goods are transported on the road, what are you doing to make this transport, road transport more sustainable? Well, we should focus on medium and long-distance transport of goods on the railway. If we were able to use the railway for great volumes, and in particular the volumes that are now traveling on the road, we would need less drivers, which are currently lacking. And why are there these difficulties in Italy? What are the main points? Well, there's a plan for enhancing railways by RFI, but we lack terminals. It's, you know, like having highway with no toll stations. And so well, even in the 90s, something was done, but with no real effects. So we should focus on intermodal transport as the rest of Europe. And I think that we are still lacking something in this sense. We lack policies and also investments. Well, actually, foreign investments have arrived, and so the business can be profitable, right? Yes, for sure. So, you heard the voice of Vice Ministro Morelli, who said that he agrees with that, and we will go back on that. But I would like to ask to Pietro D'Arpa what you think about this and about the alternative for goods transport. Well, the main problem is related with infrastructures, because we need to have investments in infrastructure, has already been said. So this is the right direction to follow, both for the railway and intermodal transport. In Italy, we have this problem, but this is a problem that other European countries have. There is another element to take into consideration. It is possible to use the infrastructures we already have more efficiently and effectively. And so we could work together with companies to increase in the short term the percentage of intermodal transport. Procter&Gamble is investing a lot in this at the European level, and I would like to underline that in the last 3 years, the share of intermodal transport for Procter&Gamble has increased by 50%. And then you have collaborations also in the north of Italy in this direction. Yes, absolutely. And I would also like to emphasize that we are working with the authorities for intermodal transport, and we are collaborating effectively. So we are convinced that in the next 12, 18 months, we can increase this percentage in Italy. The structural problems will remain. This is true, but we can do something more. Professor Perego, you are an expert in logistics from the Polytechnic of Milan. We wanted you to be here because your perspective is an external one, because you look at these processes, you study them. And so our question is, what about the funds of the PNRR? What kind, of gaps could they fill here in Italy? Well, let me sum up some of the main points that have already been underlined. We saw that there are two main things. People move mainly by car. And so on the road, 70% of people use the car, but for goods, the percentage is even higher. It is 90%. So there's a whole series, of problems related to traffic and negative experiences, because this is a problem that you can mainly see in the cities. So we need to have a better balance, and we need three main things. First, investments, and this is clear. We need to invest in the modes of transport that have been lower so far. For example, investing in railways, ports, and so on and so forth. So it is correct to have investments in this. Is the PNRR enough? No, it isn't. We need to keep on investing for 10, 15 years in the longer term. Otherwise, we will only take some steps forward, but we won't be able to solve the problems. For sure, the PNRR is one of the right first steps. Then, when we talk about different means of transport, we also talk about multimodal transport. These different transports that is, for example, railway and road for the transport of goods and so on. Well, this, I think, is at the basis. But the problem are the problems in which you change the mean of transport. We need to have different railway stations, different ports that can support this multimodal transport. And as for the mobility as a service, we also need platforms to support this kind of transport. And the last point is that we need to remember that both citizens and companies are not outside the problem, but they are fundamental for achieving this balance between the different means of transport. Because, well, you know, sometimes we need to use the car, but when we can avoid using the car, it's up to us to choose an alternative. So thank you very much. I think that what you have underlined is fundamental to, you know, accelerate, to speed up the change. And we don't just need to wait for the government to do something.
We have been talking about railways and roads, but we need to talk about ports now. Well, actually, so far, the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience is not actually allocating a lot of funds for the ports, but we tried to interview some of the main experts working within the port field and asking them what's the status of the Italian ports. In Italy, the post-pandemic situation has been developing very slowly. And we are looking forward for the PNRR funds in order to innovate and renew the entire sector. Well, let's say that this is not enough to solve the situation of the Italian ports, but of course they're very useful, these funds, and they actually help and support this process that we have been going through for a while, aiming at public renewal, which requires a huge amount of investments. If we consider the national ports in 2021, the first one is Trieste with 55 million tons, then followed by Genoa, Gioia Tauro, Livorno, and Cagliari. Trieste and Genoa are exploiting their position, their geographical position, working mainly with north and east for Trieste and north and west for Genoa. They're dealing with other huge ports in Germany and the Netherlands as well. In Italy, the situation of some ports is already focused on filling a gap with that we have with other ports in the northern Europe. So thinking about Trieste, we are now dealing with the market which is working with Belgium, Bulgaria, Poland, and so on. So we are developing intermodal transports that are more and more focused in reaching the north of Germany, and as well the port of Genoa is working towards Sweden. Venice as well, the port of Venice is involved in this process. So we are trying to do to achieve better results. But of course, there will be more and more challenges to be faced in the future. We need to move forward quicker in order to develop ports furthermore for the transport of goods and people, which shall more and more keep in mind and be careful about the development of new energy supplies and taking care of the environment as well. In our port in Trieste, we had an European approach in order to consider what is happening with these transport means as a huge resource that we have. Of course, we have to consider the energy aspect as well, so we need to be as green as possible. We are aiming at achieving an energy transition, considering the port as a huge resource from this point of view. And the port is also a technological hub. So it's a point of reference for from the technological point of view as well. So the future for the port is not the port by itself, but all the aspects that are involved, and that's the aspect on which we are investing. Though we shouldn't forget what's the main topic of today, so trying to focus on the transport for the future, talking about the very short term. So I'd like to ask the Vice Minister a couple of questions concerning what Mr. D'Agostino was saying. So port considered as a technological hub, where the port plays an important role in terms of energy transition. This is not the way we actually conceive and consider our Italian ports. So is that the port of Trieste an exception, or what do you think about it? Well, we should consider the fact that we are dealing with a market which is basically offering new economic models in terms of fuels, in terms of energy tools that we have available. And of course, we are open to new technologies which are being tested today. I'm thinking about hydrogen, for example, which is a topic on which some local companies of public transport are now investing, not only from an economic point of view, but also in terms of new tests and trials. So I'm thinking about the example of Valle Camonica, where Ferrovie Milano are now making this series of tests where there will be the first path of an hydrogen-fueled train, where unfortunately hydrogen is not completely green, is not yet at least, but this transition requires a series of stages in order to achieve a final goal, which is the green hydrogen. So as I was saying, today we are investing a huge amount of money on the ports. I'm thinking about the example of Genoa, where we invested more than 1 billion euros in order to develop furthermore one of the ports that, together with Trieste, as we saw the data, are aimed at working at the European level. So Italy in this moment is investing on Trieste and Genoa mainly, but I'm thinking also to other ports, for example, the port in Livorno. So we are allocating huge investments in order to provide new points of reference, not only at the Italian level, but at the European level, in order to create a positive market trend. Because, of course, we just heard talking about the choices of citizens and companies, but we shouldn't forget that companies base their choices and look at their future on the base of the financial aspects. So if it's cheaper to have their goods being transported through the port of Genoa, Trieste, or Gioia Tauro, of course, the companies will make this decision, will choose for this port. So that's our goal. So it's a matter of profitability. When we talk about intermodal transports, it's a matter of profitability, and ports can play a key role from this point of view. And they are, of course, going through a specific transformation. President D'Agostino was talking about the port, talking about a digital transformation, a digital evolution, which plays an important role as well. Talking about digitalization, how does this change your work in terms of organization as well? Well, we've been talking about digitalization for a few years already. That's not a new topic, and we are investing a lot on digitalization. This phenomenon is deeply changing the way we work within the transport industry. Let me make an example talking about transport planning. Nowadays, thanks to specific digital platforms, we can plan transports in order to adapt the orders to specific means of transport. So it does not mean, it's not true that fast is always better, because in some ways it's better to rely on roads, in some other cases on railways or ships. So in the past it was a manual work, while today we can achieve this goal in a digital way and in real time. So this, of course, opened a huge amount of new opportunities for intermodal transports, which were not possible in the past. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Pagliari something else, but I'd like before to involve Professor Perego to talk about ports and the future of ports. So can you explain us better what it means, in your opinion, how ports can be strategic? Well, there can be two different ways of considering what Mr. D'Agostino just said. The first one is considering the port of Genoa, which is a door towards Europe. So goods going through this port, coming from Asia, coming on these huge ships and the port of Genoa, shall be then distributed all over Europe in the most effective and efficient way, and in a better way than in the ports of the north of Europe, because we are talking there about ports which will require 5 further days in order to achieve these ports. So of course we can rely on these ports that we have, but in order to be able to do that, we need to invest on the intermodal approach, so on the interconnection between all these ports. Otherwise, the port will stay there just alone with no further developments. And then Mr. D'Agostino was considering the port as a hub where we can have technological innovation, where we can face also the energy challenges and all the other aspects that he mentioned. Let's now move on to the last part of our talk. And let's talk about the way we are moving within our cities, within the metropolitan areas. And let's say that Milan has been chosen amongst the Italian cities to test this new term, which is mobility as a service. So there will be funds allocated for this test, and this is a project in order to implement and favor the implementation of alternative means of transport, so bikes, trains, and so on. So how does this work? How can we think about this project? And let's have a look to this video, and then I will leave the floor to Mr. Pagliari. At the beginning, there's been a huge debate, but after a couple of years, we realized that this project actually decreased the number of cars traveling along the roads, with an increase in the use of bikes. I started using the bike sharing in 2009. Well, I used that to move within the city, to go to work, to get out in the evening, and so on. Well, the bike sharing, I often rely on these means. I won't say every day, but almost every day to go to work and for my private moments. There are new ways of transport which are more and more used in the cities. That's what is offered by Trenord with this service, which allows you to go to Milan by train and then to use the car sharing. We chose this path with the e-Vi approach because we decided to rely on the electrical cars. So that's, of course, a very sustainable option. And then we relied on this car-sharing model aiming at connecting not only some points within the metropolitan areas, but also little municipalities, the so-called internal areas. This has been favored by the recovery, the restarting after the pandemic period, and that integrates the traditional public transports with new sharing services. The challenge is to focus on specific time frameworks, so focusing on the hours, the main hours where people are moving, providing services and new transport modes which are different from the present ones that we have available. So it's a real challenge. A matching between services which are, let's say, rigid with a specific time, like trains or public transports, and more flexible services which can be booked by the user and can be integrated. The goal is to provide an answer to the needs of the citizens, relying on a wide range of transport options, integrating through technology different models. So it's this concept of utility as a service. So that's the example in Milan. The life of citizens will be improved meaning that thanks to a single digital app, we will have access to all available mobility services in the area of Milan. This app will be available to the user from the planning of the transport to the moment they purchase the ticket, and then the access and to information in real time in case of service disruptions. So basically, the app is extremely useful for the mobility approach. It's an innovative way to plan transports only relying on your smartphone. The goal is to provide an experience to the end user, which is based on a simplified, integrated, and customized mobility service, integrating public and private public mobility. Mr. Pagliari, I'd like to ask you to talk about a similar project that you are developing, and I'd like to ask for some support to Professor Perego. If we talk about mass, this is not something just about Milan, but it's a series of projects. Yes, it's basically an app which is considered from the point of view of the user, of the end user. So basically the end user using this app can plan, manage, pay the transport, a multimodal transport, integrating different existing transport modes. It seems to be very easy. You may think, why isn't that already available? But the challenge here is the integration which is behind this process, because we need to integrate all the aspects of all single operators and to provide a network which is integrated. So this is a test which is being carried out all over Italy in many cities. And also in the world of ACI, Mr. Pagliari, you are moving towards this direction, isn't it? Can you explain us somehow more in details what you're doing? We have been working on that, on this project for years. My generation in the past aimed at owning a car, while now the need for the new generations is to move. So there is this need of the intermodal transport. With the other car associations all over the world, we developed an app, as the professor was saying, which is able to integrate different systems. And relying on our experience on information and mobility, where we are already collecting all a series of information coming from all the different systems of mobility which are available in different areas of the city, so public transports, situations on the road, weather conditions, regional railway system, ferries and planes as well. So all the transports that are available on that area, we try to match them with the system that we have available in Milan, in Rome, and all over Italy. And now we are moving to the next step. So not only we are informing, but we are aiming at making sure that the end user, once he gets the information about the area he or she wants to move, we want to provide him or her the alternatives that they have, that may be available. So basically, with the smartphone and the app on the smartphone, the end user will just have to tell the app that they want to move from a point A to the point B, and the app will provide all the possible options that are available in that moment, and then the end user can choose. We developed this app which is called City Trips, which is already working in Spain, in Valencia, Barcelona, which was the first city where it's been tested because this project was first implemented by our colleagues in Catalonia and in Madrid as well. But also in Latin America, this project in Santiago, Chile, this has already been developed. This app has already been implemented. So we aim, within the end of this year, we aim at developing this at least in one Italian city. We are working a lot in Milan. We are checking the feedback aware as well of the ATM, which is the mobility company in Milan, and we are offering them our solution, but we are working in Genoa as well, where we will aim at integrating, at least at the beginning, all the public transport information matched with all the sharing system available, so bike sharing, car sharing, and so on. So you are ready to start, aren't you? Yes, let's keep our fingers crossed, but I hope that within the end of this year we'll be able to start this project. And I saw it in other cities. It's very simple to be used. The problem is what Professor just said. It's to collect and match together all the information coming from public and private operators with different interests at stake, and this is not easy. So we will finally ask this thing to the Vice Minister Morelli. Mr. Darpa, in the past we thought that logistics was no longer involved within the urban transport, but now, because of the e-commerce, this is a current issue, current trend. So what do you think about this trend which is happening in the huge city, in the big cities? Well, I come from Ginevra, and we have an app that you have just been mentioning, which is very similar to the one you have been mentioning. So every day I go to work by bus or by train every day, back and forth, and I've never been late, never once. Well, you live in Switzerland. That's a completely different situation. You are definitely richer. Well, it's true, it's different, it's Switzerland, but it's not magic, so it's something possible. So getting back to your question, let me say that the pandemic crisis that we had to face over the last few years definitely speeded up the development of the online commerce, the e-commerce. And of course, this increased also the issue of making logistics sustainable in our cities. At the European level, there are some solutions with the logistic hubs, which have been developed in the suburbs of the cities, where trucks are coming, they unload their products, and then on those hubs, with relying on means of transport, they distribute the goods within the cities. There are virtuous examples in the Netherlands, in Maastricht, or in the area of Utrecht. So these are very important examples. Despite not covering a huge area, these are tests which can be applied in several different cases. So of course there are specific peculiarities. Not all the cities have the same urban network and peculiarities, but this idea of hubs developed in the suburbs preventing trucks to enter into the city will solve many problems in terms of pollution, in terms of traffic, and so on. So we believe this is the right path on which we shall invest, and there are many positive examples. Of course, there are also some negative examples which actually didn't achieve the goal, but these are the good examples on which we can and we should focus. Mr. Perego, we understood now that moving is not easy. It's not easy to involve all the stakeholders, and the Italian situation is very challenging, where Milan is different from Genoa, Trieste, Catania, Bari, and etc. So what can help to solve these challenging problems? What is the method that can help overcoming the problems and issues that we have? Because the logistic hub is far away, or there are other issues. So how can we solve that? So it's shared and mutual methods. So, and we need information. Let's make the example with the city of Milan, where we put together transport of people and goods. Talking about transport of people, there are a lot of data available, because every day from the GPS of people we get a lot of data and information and we can measure in an accurate way the traffic in all the roads in Milan. So the same way Milan is collecting data from several different sources. But talking about the transport of goods, we are still lacking the data. The transport of goods and transport of people are two topics which are intertwined, not only in the city, but generally speaking. So we need to be able to collect all this data, which is not enough, however, but because we also need to observe what happens, what actually happens within the city. So we cannot think about a model which can solve all problems. We need to observe what happens, and of course we need to involve the parties which are involved. So let me make an example. 2 years of pandemics, I was working in Milan, and we redefined the times and hours of the city of Milan in order to allow high school students to go to school in a safe way. So basically focusing on the morning moment, and we involved all the parties, all associations, all working associations, professionals, trade unions, schools, universities. All parties were involved in the same dialogue in order to aim at achieving a goal and finding a solution which supported not only high school students, but also all other categories that actually led to find a balance with a good and reasonable solution for everybody.
So going back to the title of our meeting, that is moving well to live together. Well, there are several things involved, intermodal transport, new ports. There's also a change, a shift in culture that is maybe necessary, right? Yes, I think that our role as citizens, individuals, companies is fundamental, because on one hand we need to, express our needs, our expectations, but on the other hand, we need to be the protagonists of change, and that's the point. Going back to Mr. Pagliari, starting from this and thinking of living well together, we should maybe think of replacing polluting cars with electrical cars. That's a starting point. But there's a problem, because ours is the oldest car fleet in Europe, right? Yes, it's 12 years and 2 months. This is the latest statistics on the average life of vehicles. So they go from the 8.4 years of 2010 to 12 and more years. So things have worsened. There are hybrid cars and electric cars that are actually increasing, and not only do they pollute less, but they are also safer. And we have about 40 million vehicles. 20 million have more than, are more than 12 years old. And with these vehicles, the number of deaths or of casualties when there are accidents is much higher than with, let's say, younger vehicles. With these incentives given for the purchase of new cars, we noticed that we haven't achieved what we actually expected. There were the incentives for buying a Euro 6 vehicle instead of a Euro 0, but these incentives were mainly used by people who already have Euro 5 or 6, whereas those who had 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, they haven't changed their vehicles, so very little has changed. So I would like to ask the ministry to give incentives not only for buying new vehicles, but in particular for changing older vehicles and get new ones. Thank you, Mr. Pagliari. So, yes, I would like to ask them to make this little improvement to solve the situation that we are currently seeing. So, considering that we are in the middle of the electoral campaign, we should be careful with, making promises. But I would like to come to you for an important point, the point on infrastructures and the. I think that's the ability to have exchanges with the local areas is fundamental. Yes, considering that this is the electoral campaign, that we are in the middle of the electoral campaign, we need to focus on facts and not just words. I'm from Milan, so I know very well what you have mentioned about Viale Monza, Corso Sempione, Buenos Aires. All these situations are quite and sadly renowned nationwide. What you said is very important because if you think that you need 1 hour to go to Corso Buenos Aires, well, it would be better to go on foot rather than take the car. But I think that what we need is a cultural change together with important investments and a series of practical initiatives for a medium and long-term objective. So facts and not just words. And talking about Milan, in order to support those who are trying to implement this transition, 900 million euros have been allocated by this legislature for improvements in Milan, and through the PNRR, other billions of euros have been earmarked for other transports and for the planning of the M6, that is one of the new underground lines. So a lot of things have been done, initiatives carried out for the improvement of traffic in our city centers. But we need to consider very well what intermodal transport means, because, we need to create connections between the hinterland and the major cities that will become regional metropoles. We need to make choices to, give solutions to young people. What we are doing now will profit them in the future. The underground lines will require several years to be completed. But again, the idea of intermodal transport should be the core. The word reasonable was used earlier on, and everything should be made in a reasonable way. As Pagliari said, the average age of vehicles is increasing. This doesn't mean that people are bad and don't want to buy new cars, but many of them do not have enough money, cannot afford new cars, otherwise they would do it. So, for example, the fact of stopping Euro 5 cars and preventing them from getting into the city centers, in my opinion, is not correct, because this would prevent poorer and most vulnerable, if you want, parts of the population to get to the cities. Thank you, Mr. Morelli. And thanks to all our guests, thanks to the audience here, and to you online. We will meet tomorrow for the third episode on the future about research and university, to know where the world of university and research are heading. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Se in strada hai rispetto per gli altri, vinci tu, vincono tutti. Rispettiamoci. ACI, partner istituzionale del Giro d'Italia. Se in strada hai rispetto per gli altri, vinci tu, vincono tutti. Rispettiamoci. ACI, partner istituzionale del Giro d'Italia.